So if you're still accumulating in your pension, this could affect the efficiency of your contributions in the future. From next April, the national minimum and living wage are going up. That means clients might see adjustments in their pension. Well, hello folks, it might be frosty outdoors, but the autumn budget has definitely heated things up. Last Wednesday, Chancellor Rachel Reeves, and rest assured there is no connection to us here at Reeves Independent, she dropped her latest budget. And that's why today we're going to take you through the key changes and what they really mean for you. And this isn't just the headlines, we take you through the details step by step, explaining how the updates could influence your plans, your money, and ultimately your retirement timeline. Here's a quick rundown of what's changing. First up, we're seeing big updates to savings protection, with the FSCS limit on cash deposits rising from £80,000 to £120,000. Taxes are a major theme too, with frozen thresholds dragging more people into higher bands, and increases to dividend, savings and property income tax. The one I can imagine you're all here to learn about, pensions are also affected. The state pension triple lock is staying, which is good news, but from 2029, the national insurance savings which salary sacrifice delivers will be capped. And if you're saving for retirement in an ISA, there's a couple of big things you need to know about there. Limits changing on how much you can save in what product, and a new interesting ISA to replace the lifetime ISA. Now, businesses will feel changes to writing down allowances, and homeowners with high value properties will see a new mansion tax. There are even new rules coming for electric vehicle mileage and on what products the sugar levy applies to. So altogether, it's a budget that impacts an awful lot of people, and everything from everyday living costs to long-term planning. Number one on our list, given we are pension specialists after all, is pensions, and there are a couple of really important changes coming. Firstly, the government has confirmed that the triple lock will be kept in place, which means the state pension will continue to rise by either the highest of the following: earnings measured by the Office for National Statistics, or ONS for short, inflation from the Consumer Prices Index, or CPI for short, or 2.5%. So what does that look like for you? Well, from April 2026, the full new state pension will increase to £12,547.60, based on the 4.8% wage growth figure published by the ONS. Now, that's good news for anybody who is approaching retirement or in retirement, as it provides a bit more certainty and a higher baseline income to plan around. However, if you're already retired, because the personal allowance is frozen, more pensioners could end up paying tax on their state pension for the first time, or pay more tax generally. For pensioners who have no other income, the government says it will ease the administrative burden so that they do not have to pay small amounts of tax via simple assessment from 2027 to 2028. That is, if the state pension exceeds the tax-free personal allowance from that point. But there's also a key change for those still building up their pension savings via salary sacrifice, and for us, this is a big one. Now, currently, under a salary sacrifice arrangement, an employee can give up part of their salary or their bonus in exchange for that same amount being diverted by the employer into their pension. Now, as things stand currently, both employee and employer national insurance contributions are avoided on the full sacrificed amount. For example, it's very tax efficient because the NI you pay is based on the reduced post-sacrifice salary. But under the new rules from April 2029, that national insurance relief will be partially withdrawn. Only the first £2,000 a year which you sacrifice will not be subject to national insurance contributions. Amounts above that will be treated as normal earnings for national insurance purposes, and both employee and employer national insurance will be charged on the excess. Income tax relief remains unaffected. Pension contributions will still benefit from the usual full tax relief, subject to existing pension tax rules, of course. But the NI advantage for larger contributions is effectively being curtailed. So if you're still accumulating in your pension, this could affect the efficiency of your contributions in the future if you're doing it by salary sacrifice, and it will also affect your take-home pay. But luckily, these changes don't happen immediately, so there's still a window of opportunity. If your take-home pay is more than you need, for example, you save something each month, I strongly recommend you get some advice on whether salary sacrifice can get you closer to your goals. Now then, taxes. Arguably the biggest enemy to creating and retaining wealth in the UK. Let's break down the updates and see how they may affect your finances. Firstly, the government has extended the freeze on income tax and national insurance thresholds by 3 years until April 2031. That means even though rates aren't going up, more people will gradually pay more tax and NI, and that's something called fiscal drag. Now, rates haven't changed, but the freeze gradually and stealthily boosts the Treasury's take. On top of that, income from dividends, savings and property will cost you 2% more in tax, and companies will get slightly less relief for capital expenditure through reducing written down allowances. Now, for savers, ISAs are being restructured. The overall £20,000 allowance remains, but only £12,000 can now go into cash. The rest must be invested. Unless you're over 65, of course, in which case you can keep the full £20,000 cash allowance. Now, this is in a consultation period, so it might change. But how does this connect to pensions generally? Higher taxes and frozen thresholds could mean that your state pension or other retirement income is taxed more than you might expect, whilst changes to ISAs and the dividends might influence how you plan contributions, withdrawals or investment strategies too. Now, speaking of ISAs, they're also in a consultation period to scrap the lifetime ISA in 2028 and looking at what product they can replace this with, which hasn't really been outlined to any great extent yet. Now, that makes using your allowances effectively through ISAs, pensions and capital gains planning even more important than ever, folks. For businesses and their owners and property investors as well, higher dividend tax, changes to corporation tax allowances and increased tax on rental income and rising wage minimums, which I'll cover in a second, all put upward pressure on costs and margins. Now, here's a bit of good news for farmers and their families though. The £1 million APR and BPR cap, that's the limit for agricultural property relief and business property relief, can now be transferred between spouses or civil partners in full. What does that mean in plain English? Well, if one partner hasn't used up their full relief, the other can now make use of it. That could significantly reduce inheritance tax when passing on farms or other qualifying business assets, which is good news. Now, though our view is everybody should constantly consider how best to be remunerated and how to mitigate tax and national insurance, this budget stresses again the need to take a really close look at those remuneration strategies and your property holdings and broader business planning as well to make sure you remain efficient and tax smart. It's time to peel back the curtains of the economy now, from inflation to household costs. We'll see how the budget could touch your everyday spending and your long-term plans. Let's start by taking a look at some of the economic factors that could affect your pension planning. From next April, the national minimum and living wage are going up. The new rates are as follows. Under 18's minimum pay will rise from £7.55 to £8 an hour, which is a decent 6% increase. 18 to 20-year-olds will see a healthy 8.5% rise from £10 to £10.85 per hour, and everybody over 21 on the national living wage will go from £12.21 per hour to £12.71. That's 4.2% extra. Now, this is generally good news for workers, but inflation is also running higher than expected. The OBR now forecasts 3.5% for 2025, easing slightly to 2.5% in 2026 and returning to 2% from 2027, though their crystal balls must be better than ours. Now, for our clients, these economic changes could have a real impact on both retirement planning and day-to-day finances. It's also worth reminding ourselves that these wage increases hit our employers in the pocket, and whilst big businesses might be able to comfortably accommodate these increases, small and medium-sized employers will certainly feel the pinch. And on the back of the employer's national insurance contribution increases in April this year, it all hits profits at what may well be an already tough market for your employers. Now, inflation forecasts have been revised up, as I've said, so it may be more difficult for wages to keep pace, which means households could feel more financially stretched than expected. Section 4 is benefits and household support. Let's take a look at that. We're going to explore how the budget touches everyday life, from benefits for kids to household support, and what it could mean for you and your family's finances. Now, one of the key changes in household support is the removal of the 2-child benefit cap from April. Up until now, this cap limited the amount of benefits that parents could claim for their third child or any subsequent children born after 6th of April 2020. 2017. By scrapping it, the government is aiming to directly reduce child poverty. For households, this could make a real difference to budgets, particularly for families on lower incomes or those already stretching their finances. Now, on top of that, some levies on energy bills are being removed, which the Chancellor says will lower bills for millions of households by around £150 a year. Now, these levies were originally designed to tackle fuel poverty and reduce carbon emissions, but their removal gives households a little bit extra breathing room in their own budgets. Now, let's dive into the miscellaneous updates, the interesting, unexpected, and sometimes a wee bit quirky changes that could catch your eye and impact your finances. From the 1st of December 2025, the Financial Services Compensation Scheme deposit protection limit increases from £85,000 to £120,000. That means that more of your cash in banks, building societies or credit unions is automatically covered if a provider fails. Now, couples with joint accounts benefit too, of course, because their joint protection rises to £240,000. It's a meaningful boost for anyone holding larger cash balances, especially during periods of uncertainty or when building up funds for a home move, business sale or retirement transition. Now, a word of warning though, history suggests that cash remains a very poor home for savings long term, so we do not generally advocate holding large amounts of cash, especially if it's not held within a tax efficient environment. With the limits on how much you can add to an ISA, this is a sensible time to consider whether an investment ISA can add value to your planning. Now, from April 2028, owners of high value homes will face a new annual levy, and it's officially called the High Value Council Tax Surcharge. There's a mouthful for you. But it's widely nicknamed the mansion tax, which is a bit easier to roll off the tongue. Properties over £2 million will pay £2,500 a year, and that rises to £7,500 a year for homes worth £5 million or more, and there's a few intermediate bands in between. But in short, higher value properties will now carry an extra annual cost. Simples. On the everyday side, and this probably affects more people watching than the mansion tax, NHS prescription charges in England will stay frozen at £9.90 for 2026-27, along with prepayment certificates and certain medical support items as well, whilst prescriptions remain free in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. So if you're thinking about where to retire as you get older, there's a few extra choices for you. Now, rail passengers in England will benefit from a fare freeze until March 2027, and that's the first time that's happened in 30 years. It's good news. The Eco Energy Scheme will be scrapped from April. The scheme added costs actually to household energy bills, and analysis showed that for most families it cost more than it helped. So by removing it, the government says the average household will save around £150 a year. That's on energy bills, and it starts from April. Also, if you're an electric vehicle driver, there's a new per mile surcharge from 2028. For fully electric cars, it will be 3p per mile, and for plug-in hybrids, 1.5p a mile. In addition, regional funding boosts for skills, business support and infrastructure across the UK means that some communities might see improvements that touch jobs, training and local services too. Now finally, the government plans to introduce permanently lower tax rates for more than 750,000 retail, hospitality and leisure properties, aiming to support these sectors and encourage growth. Now, to fund this, higher value properties such as warehouses, if they're worth more than £500,000 or more, including those used by large online retailers, I might add, will face increased rates. Now, for everyday households, this means that changes are targeted at businesses rather than directly affecting personal taxes, but they could influence things like local economies, jobs and services in those communities where those businesses operate. What this means for you, right? Well, I think it's probably time to connect the dots. Let's see how the budget's twists and turns could shape your money, your household and your financial future. Well, pay close attention to tax planning. With thresholds frozen until 2031 and higher rates on dividends, savings and property income, more people will slip into higher tax bands. Making full use of allowances through ISAs, pensions and also capital gains planning, which lots of people forget about, it's more important than ever. Protecting your cash and savings does become easier because the FSCS protection increases to £120,000, which gives added reassurance for those holding larger deposits, whether you're consolidating cash, holding proceeds from a property or a business sale, or investing in structured deposits. But please recall my word of warning. With low interest rates and frozen tax bands, cash is not our recommended long-term home for the majority of our clients' wealth. Pension income is going to rise, but so might like the tax you pay. The triple lock keeps the state pension growing, great, but frozen personal allowances mean that more pensioners will start paying tax or pay more tax. Careful retirement income planning is now more crucial than ever. Cost of living pressures remain as we would expect. Inflation has been revised upwards, which isn't great, and wage increases may not fully keep pace with rising prices, taxes and interest rates. And I suppose that means generally households could feel stretched for longer than they might have hoped. Business owners and landlords face higher costs, just for a change. Higher dividend taxes, changes to corporation tax allowances, increased tax on rental income and higher wage minimums all put pressure on businesses. This is a good time to revisit your remuneration, your profit extraction or your property strategy or wider business planning too. Clean energy is continuing to be encouraged, but with a bit of a twist. EV owners will see new mileage taxes, but the removal of the eco levy will reduce average energy bills, giving households a little bit of relief, and I'm sure that's very welcomed. Families gain more from support. Okay, that's good news. Removing the 2-child benefit cap provides meaningful financial help to larger families, and it might ease living cost pressures for those most affected. Investment strategies might shift. Pension reforms are encouraging greater investment in UK markets, and that could change long-term risk and return profiles. And that means clients might see adjustments in their pension fund allocations over time. So again, this budget is a mix of opportunities and challenges. Some measures give great support and extra security, whilst others make careful planning and review more important than ever. Right, so it's time to get out of business. This budget has things that are going to impact financial planning, there's no doubt about it, but luckily we have time to deal with it. Nothing that is going to drastically change your planning is coming into effect immediately. It's natural to feel uncertain about what this might mean for you, but there's no need to make any sudden decisions. For now, just take some time to digest the news, think about your plan, and ultimately, if you've got any concerns, speak to a financial advisor. And that's a wrap on our budget breakdown, folks. If you want to take a closer look at how these changes affect you personally, we're offering a free, no obligation pension and retirement review. It's the perfect way to get personalized advice and make sure your pensions, your savings and your investments are all working as hard as they possibly can. We'd also love to hear from you, so if you want to drop your comments or questions below, we'll make sure to answer them. Now, the budget might be complex, but with the right support, folks, your financial future doesn't have to be complex. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about how we've helped our clients, click the video on screen now and hear the answer to the question, can I retire at 57 with 545,000? I'll see you there.